I'd like to welcome everybody to our Township of Adelaide Metcalfe council meeting. It's Monday, October the 16th at 7 p.m. We have a full house in the gallery, which is nice to see tonight. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, you've had time to read the minutes of the previous meeting from October the 2nd, and I guess there'd only be two councillors that could speak to whether there are any errors or omissions. We had a light group that night. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation that the minutes of the Adelaide Metcalfe Council meeting held on October the 2nd, 2023 be adopted as printed. Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next up is the Committee of Adjustment. We have a recommendation that council convene as the Committee of Adjustment at 7:01 p.m. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Nordhoff, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The purpose of the following Committee of Adjustment and public meeting are to give the Committee of Adjustment, Council, and the general public an opportunity to hear all interested parties with respect to the applications being heard this evening. The public is advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record available for full disclosure. Only the applicant or a public body can appeal a Committee of Adjustment decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. This must be filed within 20 days from the date of decision. If a person or public body does not speak to the application at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the council decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal or be added as a party to an appeal of the decision to the tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision in writing, please submit a written request to the clerk. Okay, I'll turn the meeting over now to Aaron Besh, our planner, and item number 1 is the application for consent B02-2023. It's an amendment request for 5001667 Ontario Limited, and the agent is Michael Schneer, 2668 Catesville Drive. It's over to you, Aaron.
Thank you, Chair. So the first application before the committee this evening, you may be familiar. We dealt with this application earlier this year. It was a surplus farm dwelling severance that was conditionally approved. The applicant has been working through the conditions that the committee provided. However, upon discussion with a septic installer, it was determined that it was necessary to increase the width of the lot, the severed lot, because there's a sand point in the dwelling itself, and in order to ensure that there is sufficient setback from that sand point, they do need additional room to the west of the dwelling to construct a septic system. Originally, the application allowed for the applicant to retain the barn that was located on the property. You can see it on my location map, but that was determined by the applicant that it was not structurally sound. So it has actually been removed, as well as the small shed that encroached into the right of way. So although it does appear like the proposed lot line dissects the structure itself, it is no longer there, so it is not a concern. So the applicant is proposing to increase the width by 11 meters, and it would add approximately 605 square meters to the lot as originally approved, and no land would be taken out of production. So I evaluated the requested amendment based on this same criteria as the original application. The comments that were provided originally were still standing. And my analysis was that they were still appropriate. So my recommendation for this application is approval, subject to an additional condition, number 5, that the severed lot be enlarged by relocating the western lot line 11 meters to the west for a total lot area of approximately 0.67 hectares. So thank you, committee. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, and Aaron, just as a refresher, the other conditions remain the same.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Aaron from council? And I understand the agent, Michael Schneier, is on the call. Do they have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I do not have any additional information to provide at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a recommendation that the amended application for consent B02-2023 submitted under section 53 of the Planning Act be granted subject to the following conditions. And I don't think I'm going to read those out because they have not changed since we approved them before. The only difference is paragraph 5, that the severed lot be enlarged by relocating the western lot line 11 meters or 36.1 feet to the west for a total lot area of approximately 0.67 hectares or 1.65 acres. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next application for consent is B08-2023 and B09-2023. The owner is Mike Bless, 30159 Center Road. And I'll turn it over to you again, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I'm just getting my location map going here. There we go. So the next application before committee, as Mayor Clark indicated, is consent B08-2023. It is to permit the severance of a residence from a larger farm parcel that's been deemed surplus to the needs of the farming operation. In addition to the surplus dwelling consent, the applicant is also requesting an additional consent to establish a hydro easement over the lands to be retained in favor of the lands to be severed. The subject property is approximately 16.4 hectares in size, located on the southwest corner of Center Road and, oh boy, I'm going to butcher this one, Rabotham. Oh, it's going to be bad, within the township. The applicant is requesting a lot width of 30 meters, a lot depth of 170 meters, and a lot area of approximately 0.92 hectares in size for the residential lot, with the remaining farm parcel to be approximately 15.5 hectares. The lands proposed to be severed contain an existing single detached dwelling. It is privately serviced, and there is also a larger accessory building that is to be used for personal storage. The lands to be retained, being the remnant farm parcel, contain agricultural land in crop production and a small portion of a woodland that is regulated by a sawmill bayfield. So as I indicated through consent B09, the applicant and through a site visit, I did identify a hydro line that crosses the lands to be retained in order to service the dwelling on the residential lot. So in this situation, rather than expanding the lot to encompass this hydro line, it would be taking approximately 1 acre of land out of production. So the applicant opted to put in the application for the flag-shaped lot with the hydro access easement as an additional consent. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. The chief building official advised that we need confirmation of the septic system, that it is wholly contained on the severed lands. No concerns from the public works manager. The county engineer advised that the owner will be required to dedicate lands up to 18 meters from the center line of County Road 81 across the severed and retained for road widening purposes, if not already to that width. The Middlesex County Safety and Standards Officer advised that the retained farm parcel will be required to have a new 911 address assigned as a condition of consent. Asable Bayfield advised of no concerns, and Bridge provided that there are lines in the area, and if the severance impacts a gas line, it will be up to the owner to relocate that line. And no comments were received by the public or from the public. So I'm satisfied that the application meets all of the criteria for surplus farm dwelling severance. The applicant has indicated the dwelling is in good condition. It's currently occupied. The configuration of the lot is in keeping with our policies of the official plan to retain agricultural land in production. A zoning amendment to facilitate the proposed severance. A zoning amendment will be required as a condition of approval, which will rezone the residential lot to surplus dwelling, as well as rezoning the larger farm parcel for agriculture only and to prohibit any future residential dwellings on it. The application is also required to provide a reference plan that will be reviewed by the township to ensure all setbacks and dimensions are appropriate and meet our zoning requirements. And further, I do recommend that the easement be approved by committee and a condition be included that requires the easement to be registered on title of both the severed and retained lands. So my recommendation this evening for consent B08 2023 is approval subject to our standard 13 conditions, which would also include the land dedication requirement from the county, as well as a drain assessment that I did not include in my report. I did not have this information at the time, but the drainage superintendent has also identified that a drainage reassessment will be required. So I did include that as a condition number 8 as well. Condition 9, that an access easement over the hydro line servicing the 30159 Center Road be established over the lands to be retained, and the easement be registered on title of both lots. And further, that application for consent B09-2023 be approved subject to 5 conditions. They are standard conditions. The number 3 is the one that would actually require the easement to be established and then again registered on title. So that concludes my presentation. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Erin. Are there any questions regarding application B08 or 09? We'll take them together from council. Is there anyone in the gallery that wants to speak against this application? Is there anyone in the gallery that wants to speak for this application? Seeing none, we have a recommendation before us that the application for consent B08-2023 submitted under Section 53 of the Planning Act be granted subject to the 13 conditions. And further, that application for consent B09-2023 submitted under Section 53 of the Planning Act be granted to the 5 conditions as laid out by Erin. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and the last application up is an application for minor variance A07-2023. The owner is William Russell Howe at 3207 Napperton Drive. And I'll turn that over to you again, Erin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the final application before the committee this evening is a minor variance which seeks relief from Section 5.1.2 of our zoning bylaw as it relates to locating an accessory building in the front yard of a residential property. More specifically, the owner is proposing to build an approximate 55.6 square meter detached garage with a front yard setback of 28 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw prohibits accessory buildings from locating closer to the front lot line than the main dwelling, which in this case is approximately 56 meters. So as you can see on my location map, it's a little convoluted because of the red hatching here. But the house itself is set back quite far on the property. There is also this pink line that delineates the EP zone, the environmental protection zone to the south. So the applicant really is limited in his ability to locate a structure that would meet our requirements of the zoning bylaw. So the applicant has 2 structures already. He has 2 sheds in the front yard. This is an additional shed or additional garage that he is proposing. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. I did not receive any comments or concerns other than the Conservation Authority advising that they would require a permit for this structure itself. However, the applicant has already received an approved permit from the CA, so that is not a concern either. So through my evaluation of the 4 tests, I again evaluated based on, well, can they meet the zoning bylaw? Is this an appropriate development? I do not have any concerns one way or the other. The property is well vegetated as well, so it will be somewhat shielded from view from the public right-of-way. The applicant is also proposing to locate the structure in line with the other houses along Napperton Drive. So it's not going to be affecting the sight lines of the dwellings or this road safety sight lines, and it's not going to be an imposing feature on the public right-of-way as well. So with that in mind, I did recommend approval of the application. I did add 1 condition as a recommendation to committee, and that's that the detached garage be set back a minimum of 25 meters or 82 feet from the front lot line. And the reason for that is so that it is in keeping with the building line of the existing dwellings on Napperton, as well as maintaining an appropriate setback from the county road. So I'm open to any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Are there any questions from council? Is there anyone that wants to speak against the application in the gallery? Anyone that wants to speak for it? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation that the application for minor variance A072023, which seeks relief from section 5.1.2 of the Adelaide Metcalfe zoning bylaw to permit a 55.6 meter or 598 square feet garage in the front yard be approved, subject to the following conditions. The one condition being that the detached garage be set back a minimum of 25 meters or 82 feet from the front lot line. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, that's about it for the Committee of Adjustment. We have a recommendation that the council adjourn the Committee of Adjustment meeting at 7:18 p.m. Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, Erin, thanks so much. We're not done yet. Oh, whoops. Can't get rid of you just yet. Sorry about that. We have a recommendation that council convene into a public meeting at 7:19 p.m. And the next one up is an application for zoning bylaw amendment Z062023. The owner is JF Homes and Costa Enterprises. The agent is Jacqueline Costa, and it's in reference to part of Lot 18, Concession 4, and Part 2, RP 33R 5933 Adelaide. And I'll turn that over to you, Erin.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So this just one more application this evening. We do have the subject rezoning. So the purpose of this application is to rezone the severed and retained lands resulting from consents B05, B06, and B07 of 2022. So committee may be familiar with this consent that was approved last year. It is a property just north of Napperton and Pike. And the applicant was given approval to sever the lot into 6 residential pieces. So the property itself is still zoned general agriculture. So we are required through the consent to rezone to an appropriate zone. So in this case, the application is requesting a rezoning to a site-specific urban residential UR-21 zone. The property itself is approximately 4 acres in size, again, divided into equally sized residential lots, and there's 6 of those. They were conditionally approved on July 18th, and the applicants are currently working through their conditions now. The conditional approvals also require the demonstration of the lots to accommodate traditional septic systems, access to potable water supplies, shared driveways between lots, and a road widening dedication to the County of Middlesex. And they have actually provided a draft reference plan, which is currently at the Land Registry Office right now. And I did include that as part of the materials this evening. So you may note when reviewing the reference plan that the lots themselves are approximately 26.8 meters in width. The requirement of the zoning bylaw is 30 meters for a UR property. So we are looking for a site-specific zone this evening to recognize a lot frontage of 26 meters versus the 30 that is required. The application was circulated. There was no comments or concerns received on the application. I am satisfied that this is an appropriate zone and that there are similar lots in the area of Napperton Pike, and that the applicant has also demonstrated through a septic design proposal that the lots with the reduced width are still capable of accommodating traditional septic designs. So my recommendation on the application this evening is approval in principle, limited to a first and second reading of the implementing bylaw. And the reason for that is that we have, like I said, the draft reference plan is at the Land Registry Office now, and we do require the approved plan number and to incorporate into our zoning bylaw. So my recommendation is the first and second reading with the third reading to be done once that reference plan number has been provided. And I have provided a draft bylaw for council's consideration this evening. Thank you. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Are there any questions from council to Erin regarding the application? Okay, we have a recommendation that the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z06-2023 be approved in principle, limited to first and second readings of the implemented bylaw. And further, that the final reading to be provided once the deposited reference plan has been received to the satisfaction of the township. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Nordhoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn the public meeting at 7:23 p.m. and reconvene into regular session? Moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, now Erin can go if she wants to. And anyone in the gallery, if you want to leave, feel free. That's okay. And if you want to stay, that's all right too. So thanks, Russ, for coming. Okay, next up on the agenda, we have 4 Counties Health Services Foundation will be doing a presentation. We have Tom Jeffrey from the board, Steph Olette, VP Strategic Partnerships, Jackie Van Beatty, and Martha Wertner. I'm not sure if that's the group. Yep. So if somebody wants to come up to the microphone here, we have one. And if you want to tag team, that'd be great. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, or you can jump up in. There's some microphones there. So welcome, folks, and welcome, Tom. Good to see you. And we'll turn the meeting over to you now. And I don't know if you can drive with the clicker. You're going to drive? Good. Okay, I'll turn it over to you then. You're in control.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for allowing us to present to you this evening on the Four Counties Health Services Foundation and the work that it is doing and completing now. We divide our presentation into three parts. I will give you a brief update of what the foundation is working at. And then Steph, who is the VP for Strategic Partnerships, will speak on the hospital. And then Jackie will present on some ideas and where we can help, how and what you can do to help us moving forward. So 2 years ago, we developed a strategic plan and we developed a mission statement. And I think it's one of the ones that I think resonates what we are and who we are and what we need in the community. And it's to build relationships that support the Four Counties Health Services by raising awareness to critical equipment needs and encourage community ownership through giving. So that's the big part, giving. We have a full board, one of the first times in my term of 8 years as chair, and it's nice to have that. Most of the people are local people and that, and then we have three ex officio, the MHA rep, representative from the auxiliary, and then Steph from the MHA, or from the Four Counties Health. One of the things that I want to point out to you, and many people do not know this, the government does not fund capital equipment needs. Anything according to our Four Counties Health Services Foundation or Foundation Hospital, the hospital itself has a policy of anything over $3,000 is considered capital. So anything over $3,000, that is our responsibility and the responsibility of the residents of the four counties to come up with those dollars to raise and do that. And since we were inception in 1987, we have contributed approximately $9 million to the hospital. So a lot of dollars have turned over and done a lot of good at the area. Our strategic plan develops from governance to human resources to fundraising, which leads us to where Jackie will be talking a little bit later, because that's the most important part, is we have to get that message across. And we have to communicate. And that's why we're here tonight, to communicate to you why and what we need. Our structure is from the bottom up. We work with our auxiliary, the foundation, and then the hospital. And that's all ran by the MHA board, which is an overview of both hospitals, Strathroy and Four Counties. State-of-the-art equipment provides equipment care for the patients. It allows the hospital to increase the number of procedures that they can do in a year, and it reduces wait times. Well, it's a very important thing is wait time, and it keeps care close to home rather than patients having to travel to London or to Sarnia or to Windsor or Chatham, wherever. We can get that done here, hopefully in our own local area. A recent study shows what is very important for newcomers to an area, and this is something that interests councils, is why people come here. They're looking for jobs. And the second most important reason they come is for healthcare, access to good healthcare. So we try to provide that. And they not only impact the community or the hospital, but they also impact the viability of rural communities, because it's important that you have those services. This is our 2023-24 capital campaign. It's a total of $137,000. And you can see the different pieces of equipment there, ranging from the liver function test at $25,000 to the physio bed at $3,600. All important equipment for the hospital. And I want to thank you, the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe, for your generous donations over the years. Since 2008, you've donated over $42,000 to the hospital, and we appreciate that truly. And I'll turn it over to Steph.
Well, thank you, Tom, and good evening, Your Worship and fellow councillors. It's a pleasure to be here again to update you on what's happening at our hospital. We'll run a quick video for about 90 seconds if the volume's working. Michael? Thank you.
Oh, it's on my
And we can provide initial care for badly injured patients or very sick medical patients. Having the heliport immediately adjacent to the emergency department is very helpful in getting patients quickly to higher levels of care. Over the last few years, Four Counties has been developing itself as a health village where other services are offered here in addition to traditional healthcare. We have partnerships with a private lab, a wellness center, Southwestern Ontario Aboriginal Health Access Center, and a dental clinic. We do physiotherapy and rehabilitation, adult day center for elderly patients. The fact that Four Counties is located where it is a huge benefit to the residents of rural Middlesex County. It means that care can be provided to them closer to home without them having to travel. Living in Middlesex County is a delight. Pace of life is a little bit slower, and I think people enjoy themselves a little bit more because they're living in a rural environment. This hospital has a very friendly atmosphere. People greet you with a friendly smile, will try to help you in any way that they possibly can. It feels very much like a family.
And thanks for the support, Michael. We were quite proud to partner with Middlesex County to help us develop that video. They were looking for organizations to profile, and we were glad to come. It's a 90-second clip that really shows us what it's all about to be at Four Counties. So a couple of key takeaways from that presentation. Four Counties is a small but mighty hospital that helps to stabilize patients if they actually have to come to the hospital after a farming accident or a motor vehicle accident. Our role is not to do surgery and life-saving surgery. Our role there is to stabilize the patients in such a way that then they can be brought to a tertiary care center or Strathroy Hospital by use of air ambulance or land ambulance, etc. We're also fortunate with the support of our foundation recently to have renovated a room in our emergency department that allows us to do more comprehensive care for those that, for example, have COVID or other respiratory illnesses that we don't want to circulate outside of the hospital room. So we created a negative pressure room in addition to the ones we already had. So it's state of the art there. Some of the key statistics, and I'm assuming you have the package with you, but when we look at a hospital in a snapshot over the last fiscal year, we've seen a record number of emergency visits. That number is almost 12,000 visits in the course of a year. If we were a hotel, we'd be 98% occupied. So 95% some days, 105% some other days, because sometimes we manage to squeeze in extra beds and extra patients for some of our ill patients. We see about 500 inpatient discharges a year, over 7,500 patients of our very excellent physiotherapy rehab department. We're starting to rebuild our volunteer base because our volunteer base was lost due to COVID. They went away, and we were just slowly recruiting and getting them back into our programs. A very vibrant emergency department, imaging department, I should say. A very extensive endoscopy program that saw over 400 endoscopies done last year. And finally, a diabetes education program. So when you look at the hospital statistics by county, we always like to come and present and show the split from where our patients do come from. So as you can see from the graph on this left pie chart, about 40% of patients come from Middlesex County, and you can see the split with the other counties across the board here. When you look at our emergency visits, the Middlesex County has a smaller share of the pie, offset a little bit by Chatham-Kent County, because what we found by experience is that we have residents from East Kent County that choose to go half an hour east to come to our site, which has lower wait times than perhaps going to other hospitals in their catchment area. So patients have choice, and we welcome those patients. I spoke to our 12,000 emergency visits last year. Well, here's a testament of how that growth has also happened over the course of the last 10 years. In 2013, we had roughly 800 patient visits per year. That number is close to 1,200 a year now. And now you're probably wondering, so that's a 50% growth, but what's all those little spikes, those dips in 2020, 2021, 2022? Well, that's actually COVID. So every significant wave of COVID had a really interesting counterintuitive effect whereby the patients avoided the hospital for a variety of reasons, or fear or uncertainty of what to expect when they go to the hospital. In terms of a day in the life, we had an opportunity a couple of, maybe a year or so ago, to do a photo spread for our upcoming strategic plan launch. And just to show that our hospital comprises of more than the traditional doctors and nurses we think about who runs the hospital. So we have imaging staff, unit clerks, radiology techs, kitchen staff, et cetera. It just provides that vibrant nature of our hospital that we're so proud of. Speaking of some of the services that we're really proud of, we continue to be proud of our palliative care suite, which was developed about 7-8 years ago. We changed and transformed a ward room into a palliative care suite that not only has very soft lighting and flooring settings, but also has a kitchenette of sorts with a sofa that people can stay overnight and be there with their loved ones as they're going through their palliative care journey. And we continue to be very thankful for 3 specialists that provide dermatology, respirology, and endoscopy services at our hospital. I spoke briefly about our endoscopy program. So again, this was one of our big campaigns several years ago, and we celebrated that program rejuvenation, I should say, and proud to see the statistics over the last 3 fiscal years has gone from 143, and then there was this dip because of COVID. Again, we had to curtail some of our programs, but really proud to have bounced back and done over 400 procedures in fiscal year 22-23. And my last slide before handing it over to Jackie is just a quick update. Dr. Dreyer in the video spoke to the Health Hub, or what I call the Health Village, and really proud to have a Dynacare on site providing 5 days of lab coverage, 8 to 4 with 2 technicians, which is a sign of growth and stability, and actually their recognition of our hospital being a hub in our area, as well as our friends at the foundation. And as Dr. Dreyer mentioned, SOHAC, which is Aboriginal Health Access Center, Newberry Dental Clinic, as well as our friends at the Villa. This is an adjacent building on our hospital property. They have independent living and supportive housing services, and they're on our land, but they have their own separate board and building, and we continue to be in good partnership for them as they look to grow their own physical building presence to accommodate any housing needs down the future. That's it for me. So over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm here for the ask, and I guess our ask is a request for your continued support. We are so appreciative of what the support we receive from our generous community, and Adelaide Metcalfe in the past 15 years, as Tom mentioned, have donated almost $42,000. So thank you so much for that. And the other part of the request for continued support is not just about the monetary value. It's also about the support of our rural healthcare and our rural hospitals. And as community leaders, you know how important that is to our way of life to have that healthcare there. So we also ask you to be an ambassador for our hospital and for rural healthcare in general. So that's a request. And we're also looking, as Tom mentioned, we have our campaign or our appeal for this year. We usually divide into 2 appeals, a spring and a fall appeal. So these are the items that we're fundraising for the fall, and which totals $67,500. And just briefly go through them. The one in the top left, that is a CAD pump. So that is for continuous narcotic administration for palliative patients. So it's very important that the patients can administer the pain care themselves when they are needed it. And to the right, I should say, that kind of alien looking piece of equipment, that is, you've probably seen those are workstations on wheels, and they're very important for the healthcare staff to access patient information and be mobile with that. In the middle, that's an IT switch. So that's basically $20,000 to make sure that our records are being kept up to date and all our IT is kept up to date. And you know how important that is. The left corner is the iStat blood analyzer, which is portable and used a lot in emergency department. And the right is staff education. We usually put about $12,000 towards staff education to make sure that our staff is kept up to date. So we like to talk about why people support the hospital and why it's so important to our community. And I like the story of the McRoberts family. They're a family from Bothwell. And when the hospital was being built 55 years ago, they were really involved in as community members. And there were, the whole 4 counties area was very involved in fundraising for the hospital and making sure that it was built. So they were very good supporters, and Mrs. McRoberts even set up the first hospital library. But what's interesting, I think, is that they moved out west. And since she's been out west, she still supports our foundation because it's so important to our community and realizes how important it is for our area. So in conclusion, just wanted to reinforce, and I'm sure I'm, preaching to the choir. You all understand how important our infrastructure is for our rural communities, and to have immediate access to care, as Steph was saying, in emergencies. I mean, it's so wonderful that we are, located where we are. We have the helipad if someone needs to get stabilized and move on. And also, if you're going to the emergency department, the wait time is, you'll be seen quite quickly. So that's very important. And as we're very proud too at 4 counties that even though we're a small hospital, we keep our technology up to date and our staff training up to date. And that's because of our generous donors that we can provide that training and that equipment. And also, as you know, having a good hospital is about community well-being. It's not just about when you're ill or when you have an emergency. We have as Dr. Dreyer's video said, you have the adult day program, diabetes education, our physiotherapy department, which is very well used. And there's other things to the health village that we want to just keep adding and growing. So it'll be a real hub for our community. So I think that's everything we wanted to mention. I did bring some newsletters. We publish a newsletter twice a year. So this is the spring one. The fall one's coming out shortly, but I'll leave those with Mike. And if you have any questions of any of us, we appreciate your feedback or comments.
Hey, thank you. That was a good presentation. Are there any questions for the committee? No, seeing none. Okay, we have a recommendation that council receive the 4 Counties Health Services Foundation presentation. Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We're doing a different approach this year. We have a budget working group. So that I'm assuming that you filled a request out for the October 31st deadline for a council grant. You have filled that out? Okay, so that will come before the budget working group and that your request will be considered at that time. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Yeah, you can go out that way if you'd like. Sure. Thank you. Okay, the next item up on the agenda is 5D, a health and safety legal compliance evaluation findings for workplace safety and prevention services. So we have on Zoom Nicole Sherman and Tanya, I believe. Are you both there or just one or?
Yes, good evening.
I'm
How
sorry,
are
I
you?
just couldn't see.
Oh,
Good.
that's
Well,
okay.
welcome to our meeting. Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
turn it over to you guys now and you can figure out who's going to talk first and
Yeah,
you're on deck. Okay.
sounds good. I'm going to share my screen. So we just are going to do that here for you first. And I'm going to make sure that you guys can see. Oh, there we go. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So yes, my name is Nicole Sherman. I'm here with Tanya True. So I was one of the health and safety consultants who assisted in conducting the legal compliance evaluation that was requested by, we were first approached by Dan Parker and Coulter Cahill from the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe to conduct a legal compliance evaluation. And I'll kind of get into what was all entailed and then what our findings were. If you're not familiar with workplace safety and prevention services, we are one of 4 health and safety associations across Ontario that are, financially kind of backed through the WSIB through transfer payment agreements and such that way. So we are a government related type of health and safety association. So our sectors that we help provide support to are agriculture as well as manufacturing and service sectors. So the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe falls nicely within that for us to help you provide the services. Tanya Choi is joining me as well because she is the account manager for your organization as well. So any work and things like that may be requested, she is your go-to girl as far as assisting with what we can provide you with and further services. So Tanya will conclude this presentation by giving you some insight as to where we can potentially provide some future services beyond what we've done for you today. So when we talk about a legal compliance evaluation, what we're really doing is we are coming in and we're doing an assessment. We're doing using observation, interviews, and reviewing documentation with respect to health and safety in the workplace. So we did that for both the fire department as well as the public works and office department. So 2 separate reports, 2 separate evaluations were conducted just because the work was very different. While you might share some documentation as far as you know, some policies and procedures and what have you, there is a very marked difference between the type of equipment you use, the type of work you perform. So we kept it as 2 very much separate audits. So we were looking at your compliance with respect to the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the applicable regulations for those departments, okay? The observations were restricted to on-site buildings and grounds. So we were only on site at the fire hall, as well as at the public works, your 2 shops and your office area. We did not go out to the roads with the roads crew, with the fire department to view any work conducted off of those grounds. So that's where the compliance audit kind of kept its boundaries. The legislation that was included within the evaluation certainly was the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I won't read them all for you here. You can read just as well as I can, but these were the other applicable regulations that were assessed through this compliance evaluation. Okay. So like I said before, the data that we gathered used a document review. So we were provided with policies and procedures, with training records if they were able to be provided, other types of records, maybe assessments and whatnot, meeting minutes, those types of things. We also conducted interviews with supervisory staff, management staff, but also frontline staff. So workers for both departments, as well as your Joint Health and Safety Committee worker representatives as well, which is hugely important in keeping them involved and being transparent in the process as well. So we were on site and we conducted the fire department evaluation on April 20th of this year, and we were at the Public Works office the following day on April 21st. Like I said before, our department contacts were Dan Parker for the fire department and Coulter Cahill for the Public Works and Office department. And we also interviewed Jim Reddick with the fire department and Mike Duffy with the Public Works and Office departments. Okay. When we look at kind of what the limitations were and what was out of scope, we have to consider that what Allison and I viewed at the time of the evaluation is a snapshot in time. So what work was happening, the condition of the shops, the condition of the offices, the condition of the fire hall, all of that was very much a snapshot in time. So that's to be considered as this evaluation kind of was done. There was no observation conducted for work performed off of those township premises. And certainly there were certain sections of the Act and applicable regulations that were unable to be evaluated and require the employer to follow up to confirm compliance, such as things like building code compliance, chemical specific requirements, those types of things. So that was all detailed and itemized within the audit document when it was returned as to what is requiring employer confirmation on certain items as well. So what the final deliverable was for both departments, fire department as well as Public Works and Office department, was a legislative compliance evaluation report. There were well over 200 line items that we go through to identify compliance and non-compliance. We identify through each line item whether you are compliant, non-compliant, maybe it wasn't audible or not applicable. So that again is all identified in the report, and each separate department got their own evaluation report, as well as then an executive summary to support those findings. So the executive summary very much is kind of a short synopsis of, again, what it was that we did, the strengths that we found within each of the departments, as well as then some areas for improvement, which I'll go over with you next here. The evaluation findings for, like I said, when we look at how we break those down in each section of legislation. We either found enough documentation and evidence through interview and observation that the department was compliant. So all legal requirements have been met. We may have found instances where there was non-compliance. So there was shortcomings within the data collection process to indicate that compliance was not able to be met. You may also have times where there's opportunity for improvement. So you may be compliant, but there may be a suggestion for opportunities to do things slightly better or enhance what we are already doing. So you may see compliance, but also an opportunity for improvement. Okay. Not auditable means we had insufficient evidence of findings available for a determination of compliance to be made. And not applicable just simply means that what they're asking for wasn't something that was applicable to your area. So say using the use of chainsaws, well, or maybe not chainsaws, but nail guns, we'll say the fire department doesn't use those. So when legislation is asking me about compliance in and around the nail guns and Reg 851, it's not applicable for the fire department, right? Just as an example. There's also areas where it may not have been able to be evaluated. So the employer to confirm that compliance, which I mentioned before, which is specific to building code requirements. We don't do a deep dive into chemical compliance and things like that. So there are a few that were not evaluated, and then some other extra notes to the employer. So when we look at breaking these down, per department, we look at the fire department here. We had 96 compliances, okay, 49 non-compliance, 13 opportunities for improvement, 13 not auditable, 71 not applicable, 14 not evaluated, and 10 notes. So again, this is all going to be all detailed and identified with documentation and verbiage to go around why we indicated something was compliant or not compliant, etc. So there was a lot of good explanation in and around that. So the areas of strength that we found for the fire department is first and foremost was your safety culture. There's a huge kudos to Dan and his team for identifying a safety culture where employees feel supported to report any hazards that they may find, and to know that there's no reprisal. Also to know that there's prompt response for acting on those reported hazards. So that was very well communicated through the interviews that we had with staff at the fire department. So to be very much commended on that. That is not something that we see at every workplace, and there's fear for reporting at workplaces, fear of reprisal. So Dan and his team there have created a great culture as far as that goes. I also very much appreciated the support, both in verbal, oral support, as well as literature, as well as information nights and postings around psychosocial support. So in person as well as written information we found to be shared. I again commend this and ask that this be maintained, this kind of continued support, and to cultivate that safe space to continue to report concerns to one's mental health. I too, coming from a healthcare background prior to WSPS, know how important it is for those in a space that deal with traumatic types of incidences, need to know that there's a safe space to report and that there is support there for them and debrief situations and scenarios. So again, commendable for what's happening there at this level right now. I also do appreciate the monthly truck checks that are happening. Those were well documented. It is a proactive measure to make sure that all the equipment and materials are maintained and ready when needed, which is a legislated requirement. And I know that that helps them when they obviously get to the front line and need to do the job that they need to do, because they have a job of, you know, putting out the fires or assisting people in accidents or whatever you may have. The piece around this, though, is that when they go to use that equipment, it's in good working order, so it's not going to pose any more harm to the worker themselves. So again, well commended on the documentation and the process in and around those monthly truck checks. When we're looking at potential areas for improvement, and this is based on legislated requirements and expectations in and around that, I will say that all the areas for improvement are not listed in these slides. I chose the top few here that I thought would be good to discuss and hit home on. Again, it's not all of them. So the final report audit document will have all the nonconformities and areas for improvement that we identified. One area for improvement being the Joint Health and Safety Committee. While one is established, it doesn't meet the legal requirements for a multi-worksite joint health and safety committee. So currently right now, the fire department and the public works and office departments merge together to form one JHSC. In order to do that, you would need to apply for a multi-worksite JHSC, which would be done through the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training, and Skills Development. So that is an option to try and do that. The only kind of concern and what we've kind of maybe noticed in our own findings of workplaces applying for those is that typically they also like to look to see where workplaces are doing the same type of work. And because the fire department and public works and office departments are very separate in the type of work that they conduct, I can't say or not say whether the ministry would approve or deny a multi-worksite JHSC, but it would be something that they would be considering at least. So first and foremost, the recommendations at this point would be to establish a JHSC solely for the fire department, and then also then for public works and office department, which we'll get to in a moment. But the fire department would have their own JHSC and refer to Section 9 of the Act in regards to what those requirements are. When looking at another area for improvement, one surrounded itself in and around documentation. Policies and procedures, some were found to be out of date, and not necessarily an efficient way for pulling and being able to provide certain documentation. So if the Ministry of Labor, Immigration, Training, and Skills Development, I might shorten that to MOL right now in Ministry of Labor, if they were ever to come in and ask for that, we want things to be efficient and readily available. So being able to provide meeting minutes, inspection records, testing records, if you had any kind of occupational hygiene testing done or things like that, as well as policies and procedures, we want them up to date and we want to be able to provide them in an efficient manner. So recommendations is to conduct a thorough review of all your health and safety policies and procedures to determine which ones are relevant, because I think there are ones in there that aren't relevant as well that we found. And also consider developing a standard template for policies and procedures that includes a review frequency and a change log. And consider creating, updating an index of all health and safety policies, just to kind of keep tabs on those types of things. Training records were also something that we found to be not well maintained and able to be readily provided. So when we asked for certain types of training, it was verbally reported that it was provided, but if there is no documentation to be able to show that it was provided, it didn't happen. So that's what the Ministry of Labor is always going to be asking for, is the documentation. And if we can't provide it, it didn't happen. So my suggestion here is to develop a system to identify and track the training requirement. There are electronic systems to be able to do this, or you develop your own way of tracking and doing those system requirements. Identify a centralized location where training records will be stored, but it's also very imperative that supervisors have access to that centralized location where we're storing those training records, because they need to pull those as well. And so then consider creating a training matrix which will assist the needs of various roles. So you say list all the roles of the different parties that work for the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe, fire department specific, and go, what training do these job postings need? What do these specific positions require? And that will help keep you organized and knowing what they need to have. And then we have dates for when refreshers and things like that need to happen as well. So again, just keeping things available and organized. The other piece kind of fell in and around noise. So the noise regulation, no sound level measurements have been taken to support that proper hearing protection is provided and being worn at required times. So hearing protection was absolutely provided. Okay, so there was no concerns with hearing protection not being provided because it was. The thing is what the noise regulation will ask for is for the hearing protection that we're providing be based on sound level measurements. So we're providing you with this level of hearing protection because the sound levels are at this decibel level. So we have founded data to then base what hearing protection we need to provide. Okay, so it's very well that you're providing hearing protection that does support what they need, but the key here is that you're basing that off of the data. And then just making sure that it's being worn at the required time. So I think it's a little bit of a supervisory piece to make sure we know when the sound is at its noisiest and when we then need to wear the hearing protection. So that all comes with the noise assessment as well, to say, this is your noisiest times. This is when we need to need to wear the hearing protection. And then that all comes through in training. So that's very much a sequential order there. Sound level testing, this is what we need to wear. Now we provide training on that. And now workers know when the expectation is to wear that hearing protection, because this is when it's the noisiest. Okay. So I'll wrap up the fire department there. We'll move into the public works and office department. You can see here, the compliances were 67, non-compliances we had 62, OFIs were around 13, not auditable was 10, not applicable 57, not evaluated 49, and we had 6 notes. Okay, and again, all of those notes and comments around all of those that got identified are in the final audit report. Okay. Again, key areas of strength for public works and office, huge safety culture. Again, was very much found that they could go to Coulter and bring any concerns forward and know that it would be addressed. They felt safe to report those hazards and the response would be prompt in trying to address those hazards. Is very much open door, very casual, bring it to my attention so that we can do something about it. So, and Coulter is very open that way, and I got a very good sense of that from him. First aid kits and eye wash bottles. Again, I think this was something a little bit newer that got put into place, but evidence that both shops, as well as the office and operating equipment, is equipped with proper first aid supplies, which is great. And then considerations were made for eye wash bottles and not near an eye wash station. So having those bottles when you're maybe in one of the operator pieces of equipment. Okay. The other piece that I really liked too was the cell phone booster at the Napier shop. So knowing that reception could be poor and is poor at the Napier shop, putting that booster in supports that due diligence for the employer to ensure that when someone's trying to make a call potentially to summon assistance or emergency situation, they're going to get through to someone. Okay, so that was a good thing to see there for public works office and office departments. Areas for improvement with public works and office. One thing I noticed, and I kind of pulled some nonconformities kind of under one umbrella here, because I think that we can identify during inspections some of the things that I found, such as a broken A-frame ladder and a damaged extension cord that was going outside and was sitting in a pool of water, and some lack of guarding on the air compressor and being pulled into that pulley and that belt, could have been things that we could have identified on a regular safety inspection. So I do think that maybe there is some enhancements that could be done to ensure that we've got the proper supervisory presence at the Napier shop, also to consider some training for those who are conducting inspections so we know what to be looking for, and also making sure that when we do document a hazard, we find it on our inspections, that we close the loop, and the supervisor needs to be kind of in tune to that. When we've identified an issue, when does it get closed? How timely does it need to be closed? So again, kind of that documentation piece and making sure that we also customize those checklists when we're doing those inspections. So fire department has different hazards than public works and office, some the same, but we can customize those inspection checklists for those sites. And I know that work has been done with that as well. So they were trying to tweak and refine those checklists too, but just making sure we don't lose sight of it, making them too generic. We want to make sure that they're specific as well. The committee, I kind of spoke to this already as far as the fire department as well. So again, it's because the public works and office department have less than 20 workers, you could go the health and safety rep route for this. Okay, so just kind of keeping that in mind, you could just go with a health and safety rep for those departments there. When looking at documentation, this is the same as the fire department. When we were looking at, annual lift testing equipment, first aid log of incidents and inspection kits, eye wash station inspections, those were the type of documentation we weren't able to find. So it's making sure that we've got the right systems in place to make sure that we're documenting those proper items there. Okay. Training records, again, same scenario as the fire department. Okay, so concerns with being able to provide and have well-maintained training documents for public works and office department. So to kind of conclude, the next steps, is to kind of here as identify the persons accountable and responsible for reviewing and prioritizing those nonconformities, okay, that were found in the audit. Consider creating action plans for the more complex nonconformities, and also share the evaluation report and executive summary with the committee and maintain that communication regarding corrective action and implementation. I probably should have said this right off the hop, but I knew I had a piece in here at the end to kind of help wrap this up before I hand it over to Tanya, is that you very much as an organization should be commended for taking these steps to identify your strengths and weaknesses for your health and safety program. It is paramount for organizations to provide a workplace that is safe and is healthy for their workers to come to every day and to return home to their families in the same physical and mental capacity that they showed up. They should go home that way, if not better. So it is a round of applause to having us in to do this. Companies don't usually shine lightly on having someone in and kind of scrutinizing maybe some of the things that are happening at your organizational level, but it's very commendable. So I do want to give that as kind of my last piece before I pass it off to Tanya. So thanks everyone for your time.
Thanks, Nicole. That was really thorough. So just really quickly, I won't take too much longer. One of the things that we do as a health and safety association is we have a ton of free resources. So that's something I'm going to help Dan and Coulter tap into. Not everything is free. There are some solutions that we could potentially help out with down the road that will be a fee for service. But Nicole and I have set some time aside this week to get together and kind of go through and figure out how we can help and sort of present that to them. And then that gives them an idea. And there's also, different class for them. And as I said, we have a ton of free resources. We're mandated to provide a way for companies to support themselves. Obviously, there's things that they can't do, like occupational hygiene testing listed on here. You do need to have an industrial hygienist for something like that. But it's probably a little overwhelming when you see that there was, 67 non-compliances. However, they're not all, huge things. And a lot of them, like Nicole said, can easily be addressed once committees have been established and inspections are occurring. So I suspect, a good portion of those would be taken care of. So Nicole and I will be working with Dan and Coulter moving forward just to help close those gaps, keeping in mind that want to put this out there, no one is ever 100% compliant. So we've never seen someone ever be 100% compliant. It's pretty impossible to do that. So we're on the right track, like Nicole said. We're working together as a team, and we're happy to do any support that is requested of us. We welcome any questions you might have.
Hey, are there any questions for Tanya or Nicole? I think I speak for all of council when I say that council supports eh, our fire chief and our public works manager. And I know they commit to addressing the issues that have been brought forward. And when you know better, you do better. And that's our commitment to do that, and council supports that. So if there's no questions or comments, we have a recommendation that council receive the health and safety legal compliance presentation, and further that council direct staff to prepare an implementation plan for the recommendations outlined in the health and safety legal compliance report to a subsequent meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. Tanya, Nicole, thank you very much for attending tonight. We appreciate your work, and we look forward to making the necessary improvements.
Thank you for having us.
That's great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up on our agenda are the upcoming conferences, seminars, and meeting. The next meeting of council is Monday, November the 6th at 7 p.m. Followed by a planning meeting on November the 20th at 7 p.m. And also a notice that the Roma Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference is being held on Sunday, January 21st, 2024 through to and including Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024 at the Sheridan Hotel on Queen Street in Toronto. And there's a link included in your package tonight if you want to look at that. We have recommended greetings, CC number 1 from the Middlesex London Health Unit, the Board of Health meeting summary from September 21st. CC number 2, Middlesex County Council meeting highlights. CC number 3, St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, their meeting highlights from the 14th. And CC number 4 from SCORE, which is the South Central Region Economic Development Corporation, their fall 2023 newsletter. Under action required, CC number 5, we have a request for a resolution, support of a resolution from the town of Wasaga Beach regarding illegal car rallies and designating a provincial task force. Is there any interest in supporting that resolution? Seeing none, we'll move on to CC number 6. We have an ask for support of a resolution from the Township of West Lincoln, and it's regarding smaller developers in Ontario communities. Is there any, Councillor Nordoff, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I would support that. I think smaller developers need all the help they can get in today's economic and political environment. So.
Any other comments on that? Are you prepared to make that a motion, Councillor Nordoff? Okay, we have that on the floor, moved by Councillor Nordoff. Is there a seconder? Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. The next one up is CC number 7. Request for support of resolution from the town of Aurora regarding gender-based gender-based intimate partner violence epidemic to have one declared. Is there Councillor McKinnon? Go ahead.
I know that council had no appetite for this one. It was brought up earlier, but I'd ask council to reconsider and support this motion.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor by Councillor McKinnon that we support the resolution to the town of Aurora for the gender-based intimate partner violence to declare it an epidemic. Is there a seconder? Okay, seeing none, that's his two guys on the floor. So could I have a motion that we receive CC number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 and file those? Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up we have staff reports. Number 7A is the Junior Volunteer Firefighter Program, and our Deputy Chief Deputy Chief Dominga will do that report for us. Welcome to the meeting, and you've got the microphone. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the mayor to council, I guess I'm supposed to say it. Be correct here. This report, you guys have also received it, but I'll read it. Background, this report is provided to overview the junior volunteer firefighter program in our community. The fire department launched this program in 2016 and was successful in its first year, as the department was able to onboard 4 young adults that were interested in becoming firefighters. This program was designed to attract young adults 16 to 19 to the fire department in hopes that they would stay on as volunteer firefighters in our community. 3 of the 4 junior firefighters have remained on the department today and have furthered their careers in firefighting. The junior firefighting volunteer program is led by myself, Deputy Chief. Participants undergo a comprehensive training curriculum and is involved in supervised activities, allowing them to gain practical and hands-on understanding of the fire safety protocols and emergency response operations. The program does not allow participants to participate in emergency situations to ensure the safety of the junior volunteer firefighters. As council knows, the fire department, through the fire service review, is undertaking a review of the department's standard operational procedures and guidelines. This includes the standard operational procedures, guidelines, policies related to the junior firefighting program. Currently, the program supports 4 participants in this program. However, the fire department would like to bring on the total number of participants to 5 in this program. Our insurance provider, VFIS, which specializes in emergency services, will provide insure coverage for the participants of the junior firefighter program at no cost for on-duty training. And the participation in community events and information for the public safety displays. The insurance cover injuries related expenses to ensure that the safety and security of the young volunteers. The fire department has relaunched this program this year through notification in the township tax inserts, as well as social media campaign. The program seemed to be successful once again, as the fire department has been able to attract 5 very keen candidates for this program. The recruits will be on board October 23rd. The interview process has been started and will be completed by October 20th. The training officers have a plan going forward to start the recruits with standard training of PPE and fire department procedures with truck checks, as well as a great time to learn where equipment is stored on the apparatuses. As they move forward, they will be able to quickly, effectively deploy equipment at a fire scene. The fire department has a fire prevention display at Rona on October 28th, so it would be a great time to meet the new recruits. Finally, we are excited to be able to offer this program yet again and look forward to building a strong volunteer fire department firefighters in our community. Thank you.
That's great, Deputy Chief. Good report. Are there any questions for the Deputy Chief? Okay, Councillor Kingma.
Thank you, through the mayor. So when you assess these recruits, do you check their academic standing and their medical status?
No. We haven't done that at all.
I think I might add, they're not put into Like they're not going to be responding to fire calls. This is more just an entry level, very basic is my understanding. If you want to expand upon that, maybe as to what they will be exposed to. I think you did a little bit in your report, but just go over it again.
Yeah, no, they won't be responding to calls at all. No emergency events they will be participating in. It'll be just at the hall, book related stuff, truck over the truck checks nights and participating in our meetings. And then as time involves these guys, and as the young adults, we can either send them for the 1001, 1002 program through the township, or if they want on their own, they can go to Lambton College. And a couple of them are kind of leaning that way already to do the fire course out of Lambton College.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation that council receive the Junior Volunteer Firefighter Program report for information. Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is our chief for the fire services review, the implementation report, and I'll turn that over to Chief Parker, and it looks like you might be on deck for some of that too. So I don't know if Morgan wants to take it. It looks like we've got both names down for that report, so I'll let you guys flip the coin.
So Chief, I'll leave it to you and I'll just fill in on your administrative support this evening. Okay.
New development along the commercial corridor. Given these changes, council allocated funds in 2022 municipal budget to undertake fire services review. The purpose of the fire services review is to better understand what the community needs with respect to cost effective and purpose-built fire service department, and to ensure we are meeting our requirements for fire services provision within the township. The township released a request for proposal in October of 2022 to procure a qualified firm to undertake fire services review and community risk assessment through the RFP process. Emergency Services Strategies and Solutions Incorporated were the successful proponent. On August 9th, 2023, council received fire services education and presentation from ESSSI with regard to the overall process for undertaking the fire services review and community risk assessment. During this council meeting, staff committed to bringing forward the list of recommendations made by the ESSSI through the fire service review and an implementation plan to achieve them. The analysis attached is a report is the implementation plan that identifies each recommendation from the fire services review and a plan of action to address each recommendation. Skipped ahead too far. The plan is anticipated to be completed in a 5-year time frame in which some recommendations may be moved forward, moved around in a timeline basis on factors such as a budgetary constraints, change in priorities, human resources, or other factors that may be justifiable to change the timing and to achieve the recommendation. Financial impact, any recommendations and their associated implementation plan that require resources beyond regulatory budget cycle will be brought forward to council as part of the future budget process. The recommendation that council receive the fire services review of implementation plan report for information.
I'm just gonna jump in real quick there, Chief. In terms of the implementation plan, council might know that there's quite a few of them to be done in the first year. I can't tell you that I'm overly concerned about this number because many of these recommendations, I think the fire chief, through the support of his team, including the administrative team, can get these done pretty quickly. We already have quite a few of these recommendations already completed, being 13 of them. Those were the ones that were I would call significant, including the ENR bylaw that council approved not so long ago. Beyond that, basically, the ones in the first year will be achieved in the first year. They seem simple enough. Year two are the ones that could be done now, but they could also be done later. So we'll worry about year two and year two. And then anything basically between year 3, 4, and 5 are items that I think might move around a little bit. There's a shuttle tanker recommendation in there, a certification recommendation that we're not sure is really required for a volunteer fire department of our size and scope. So we'll of course report back to council as we move through some of these recommendations and their implementation.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Are there any questions for either Morgan or Chief Parker? I think it's pretty comprehensive, and then the attached breakdown as well as to the 5-year plans, very well laid out. So seeing none, then we have a recommendation that council receive the Fire Services Review Implementation Report for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is the money. Okay, the operating budget to actual. I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Johnny Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the council, we have in front of us the September 2023 budget or operating budget actual report. I do have to apologize for a technical glitch. The half of the report was not posted on the agenda. It has since been corrected, and the budget actual report has been distributed to council this evening. So overall, spending and revenue collection to date looks to be on pace with the approved budget. Staff has completed a forecasting exercise this past month to understand where we project to land at the end of the year. So we are projecting at this time a small surplus, which is always a good sign, but we'll continue to track that. Commentary about the budget actuals, including the report there. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for Johnny on that up to the end of September? On the operating budget? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the operating budget to actual report for September 2023 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And I'll let you continue, Johnny, the capital budget to actual Q3.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the council. So we have the Q3 capital report here, which outlines the township's capital expenditures or capital projects for the year. This is spending up to September 30th. So this, like I said, this report outlines our capital projects and any relevant comments. Staff reviews their capital spending on a monthly basis, and a report is brought to council to outline any significant overages and a financing strategy to address those. So we have completed about half of our projects so far, 7 of the 14. A number of projects are still active, and details about the progress are noted in the report. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions for Johnny on that? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the capital budget to actual report for Q3 2023 be received for information. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And next up is a 2024 OPP billing, and I'll turn that over to our treasurer again.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through the council. So we have in front of us the 2024 annual billing statement from the OPP. This is provided to the township on an annual basis to include the amount for the annual budget and to provide some insights into the services provided to residents. So based on the methodology that the OPP uses to calculate the annual billing, we are projecting to see a 3% decrease in policing services in 2024. So the total cost of the services is just shy of $470,000 for the year. A detailed breakdown is attached in the report. I do also want to note that the OPP is scheduled to be coming to the next council meeting. So if there are any specific questions about the details of the report, they'll probably be happy to answer those questions for council. But if there's any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those, but the recommendation is to receive the report as presented.
Okay, unusual to see a reduction, but I'll take it. I'll take whatever we can get to help the budget. Any questions or comments from anybody? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the 2024 OPP annual billing statement report be received. Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is 7.F, the Kerwood Park Storage Barn improvements, and I'll turn it over to our Public Works Manager, Coulter Cahill.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clark. As mentioned, my report tonight is on the Kerwood Park Storage Barn improvements. As part of the 2023 capital budget, council budgeted $20,000 towards the install of a new roof, soffit fascia, and eavesdrop. That project was completed in the spring. We did come in quite under budget. We spent just over $10,000 to date. Basically tonight, I'm just asking for the remaining monies to go towards replacing the vinyl siding on the gable ends of the barn, basically to match the new washroom facility. Replace the man door and the existing sill, repoint damaged mortar joints and fill cracks in the exterior blocks. Block and fill 3 exterior windows and paint the entire exterior block walls of the building to match the new washroom facility. By utilizing these extra monies, we'll bring that storage barn up to date and basically match all the rest of the buildings and new improvements at the park. There is no financial impact as we did come in way under budget for the original project. And my recommendation is below. I'll open it up for any questions at this time if there is any. Thank you.
So just to clarify, it looks like you will still be under budget with these finishing off the improvements,
Absolutely.
which is nice. Okay. Any questions for Coulter? Just keep pinching those pennies. Okay, we have a recommendation that council direct staff to complete the recommended updates to the Kerwood Park Storage Barn, utilizing the remaining money budgeted for the barn roof. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, 7G, our review of our hiring policy, and I'll turn it over to our CAO, Morgan Calvert.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, to the rest of council. So we have a hiring policy on the agenda. As you know, we've gone through a number of hiring processes in the township using our old 2015 hiring policy. It generally lacked a lot of hiring process or recommendation. So the last few hiring processes highlighted some nuanced challenges from the 2015 policy. These challenges were essentially around the timing of approval of hiring of all staff coming to council, which does challenge the timing it takes to turn over a candidate from recruitment selection to an employment offer. So for more junior positions that are reporting directly to a manager, that manager would be responsible for hiring those individuals. We've gone through a number of senior management hiring processes here with council. I think that is an appropriate hiring process where there's 2 council members, including myself, doing the interview or forming a selection committee for senior management. Our senior managers are very forward-facing individuals, and they do spend a lot of time speaking to folks in the community. So it's good to have council's values resonate through our senior managers. As well, I didn't want to tie council's hands to a process to hire a CAO. Within the proposed hiring policy, there's a number of pieces of advice, such as forming a selection committee, potentially hiring a firm, requesting support from other nearby municipalities, even doing value-based testing or personality tests could be important for council to consider when hiring a CAO. hopefully you don't have to get to that point anytime soon, but you never know. The other thing, we are a small administrative team, so it's beneficial to have the largest recruitment pool or candidate pool, or essentially list of applicants that are applying for positions. That's why in the policy, it does encourage all positions to be posted externally, so that we can, if we have an internal candidate for that position, we can test an internal candidate with those that are external as well. Council's philosophy since I've been here has been high performing, well-oiled machine and customer service oriented. So it's good to make sure that we have a successful recruitment pool so that we can find those candidates that would support council's intent. Beyond that, there's a number of good practices or good human resource management practices for the recruitment and selection of staff. We've identified things like probationary periods, eligibility of internal transfers, and notification to unsuccessful candidates. Far too often do I talk to other hiring managers where they do not let the unsuccessful candidate know where they are in that process. They've taken the time to apply, taken the time and energy to meet with us for an interview. The least we can do is really let those folks know where they stand in the process. So I made sure that was in the policy. That was more of a personal thing. I'm saying all this, happy to take any questions from council. Otherwise, I kindly ask council to repeal the 2015 hiring policy and approve the one that's attached here.
Okay, are there any questions for Morgan? I think it's a pretty comprehensive report if you read through it. Seeing no comments or questions, we have a recommendation that council repeal the 2015 hiring policy and that council approve the hiring policy number HR-1.01 and the hiring policy be added to the corporate policy manual. Could I have a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have our very first community improvement plan application submission, and it's from Timbuktu Alpaca and Agritourism Farm. That's a new business located here in Adelaide Village. And I will turn this over to our CAO.
And CIP coordinator.
Okay, I'm sorry. I hope that extra title doesn't come with extra money.
It's a little extra fun. So as council will recall, the township developed a community-wide community improvement plan in 2022 that was implemented this year in 2023 with a funding amount of $10,000 as set by council through the 2023 budget process. Our application intake is open year-round so long as funding is available within the program. The township received its first CIP application in September, which is really the reason for this staff report. As this is our first CIP application, a number of standard operating procedures were developed along with a template funding agreement. So really, we're here to do two things. We're here to consider and hopefully approve the CIP application, and then consider and hopefully approve the CIP template funding agreement. So first, the CIP application as submitted by Timbuktu Alpaca and Agritourism Farm. The submitted application is seeking funding to improve accessibility of on-site programs and services and to expand open hours year-round. This could be achieved through the construction of a concrete pad and accessible sidewalk. The total project amount is about $10,365, where the CIP application is requesting funding for pretty much 50% of that. This request does meet the eligibility requirements of both the Community Improvement Plan program as a whole, but also of the specific funding programs and their eligibility requirements. So for example, if you're going to apply to the countryside program, you're also able to apply for the accessibility program. The county's economic development department has a program in place that will also assist in funding up to 50% of the municipal contribution. So if council approves the CIP application this evening, my first phone call, or maybe second in the morning, will be to Ms. Cara Finn so that we can promote this project as part of a 50% recovery under the municipal contribution portion. Secondly, the template funding agreement. So the council approved CIP program requires the use of a funding agreement. It's a good practice. Attached to the report is a fairly simple CIP funding agreement that staff have put together. The agreement simply ensures that money is spent in line with the CIP program and that of the applicant's submission. The main reason why I'm asking for council to approve the template agreement so that I can attach the funding agreement to the CIP program material. It just allows folks to know what they're getting into at the end of the process if they're approved. It also ensures that we treat everyone consistently and fairly throughout the program's life cycle. This agreement will also be reviewed from time to time to ensure that it's, of course, meeting the needs of the CIP program, but also the township as a whole. Finally, and as always, we like to think about continuous improvement around here. So council will note that we're within the report that we're going to make some minor adjustments to the form just to ensure better data collection and the flow of the form overall. If some questions kind of come before other answers, we'll solve that. Also, we're going to increase the targeted marketing of the program. So pick up the phone call more businesses that the program is relevant to. So in saying all this, I kindly ask the council approve the CIP application submitted by Timbuktu Alpaca and Agritourism Farm in the amount of $5,182.60. The council approved the template CIP funding agreement, and the council direct myself and the treasurer to execute the CIP funding agreement with Timbuktu Farms. At this point, happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? I think it's nice that we can recover 25% from the county, so that still leaves some money in the pool. If anybody's out there and watching and wants to submit an application, we still have room. So Morgan's read through that recommendation. I'm not going to read it again. If there's no questions or comments, could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority apportioning agreement. The next steps. It was it last meeting or 2 meetings ago? Last meeting, the conservation came and did a presentation to us. So I'll turn it over to who wants it. You do? Okay. To RCAO.
So during the last meeting of council, as the mayor mentioned, the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority presented on their funding request for what they're calling Category 3 programs or services. This request is over and above what the township would fund through the SCRCA's municipal levy. At that time, it was the recommendation of staff to bring forward the agreement to this council meeting. But in the meantime, Johnny and I have been chatting quite a bit, same with Mike and I, how to move forward with this funding request, given that we are seeing some pretty difficult trends in our financial scenario for our 2024 budget. So we thought that it would probably be best that council and in particular through the budget working group have a more fulsome perspective of the financial challenges that we're going to be seeing in 2024. When I talked to Ken Phillips, the general manager of the Conservation Authority, he was completely okay with that. He also mentioned that it would allow us some time to understand what other municipalities in the catchment area are also doing in terms of what their funding levels are, and what programs they might be funding. So in saying that, I just kind of ask council to refer this one to the budget working group as part of the 2024 budget process.
Throwing my microphone on. Okay, is there any other business? Councillor King.
Through the mayor to Coulter. I believe there's a 2024 expenditure for Wardell Drive. Are we on track to consider that?
Thank you, Councillor Kingma. Yes, that Wardell Drive hard servicing is part of the 5-year capital plan. It is built into the 2024 budget for council's consideration. It is a boundary road, so I have been in talks with the North Middlesex Public Works Manager, and they will also be bringing it to council for their consideration. So it'll kind of hinge on them as well. So you will see that in the 2024 budget.
Okay, any other business? I'd just like to say that I had the privilege of being invited yesterday to the 150th anniversary of the Kerwood Bethesda United Church in Kerwood. And it was a little bit bittersweet because the church has been sold as of December the 27th. But the good news is it will remain a church, and it's going to be the Grace Baptist Church will be taking over that building. So there'll still be that church in the community. And the folks, I guess, that are at the United Church now will go to Strathroy, it sounds like. So anyway, it was very, very well attended, and there was a lot of memorabilia up that was very interesting to look at. There were quilts from the early 1900s and a lot of the family names that were on those. And then in any of the history books, there's still people in our community today. So very, very interesting. So any other business? Okay, seeing that we have none, do we have a recommendation for bylaws? That bylaw 56 of 2023, the Fuller Harris Drain, and bylaw 57 of 2023, the zoning bylaw amendment Z06-2023 receive first and second readings. And further, that bylaw 58 of 2023, appointing a drainage tile inspector, Andrew Neely, and bylaw 59 of 2023, confirming October 16th, 2023, receive first, second, third, and final readings. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All those in favor? Thank you. And we have a recommendation that the meeting be adjourned at 8:46 p.m. Mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.